Following an unconvincing preseason and news that Neymar might return to Barcelona, Madridistas were in open rebellion. A win over Celta Vigo on the opening day has calmed nerves, for now, but skepticism remains, especially over Madrid's activity in the transfer market. But if you can find it in yourself to take a step back and breathe, it seems evident that Florentino hasn't done all that badly this summer window. Eden Hazard is a Ballon d'Or caliber player who was a near universally desired signing. Luka Jovic adds some much-needed goal scoring and shot production and has the potential to become world-class. Ferland Mendy and Eder Militao both fill defensive needs, and Takefusa Kubo is potentially a generational talent whose future once seemed intertwined with Barcelona's. Madrid have added players at all different stages of the developmental curve, while filling real squad needs. It seems that on the transfer front, at least, there is little reason to be angry. However, that doesn't mean that Madrid's business has been perfect. One glaring hole lies in central midfield, a hole that has remarkably gotten bigger after the disaster that was last season, with cogs like Casemiro, Modric, and Kroos getting overrun. Seemingly destined to get one of Paul Pogba, Donny van de Beek, and early on Christian Eriksen, Madrid have come up empty-handed in their search for a new central midfielder. To make matters worse, Zinedine Zidane saw no need to fight for Mateo Kovacic and decided there was little benefit in keeping Dani Ceballos around, and pushed Marcos Llorente out of the club and into the hands of Atletico Madrid. Granted, it may be harsh to criticize Zidane for the departure of Kovacic, given the Croatian's long-held desire to leave the Spanish capital. But there is less room for understanding with the Ceballos loan. Yes, Ceballos also desired first-team football, declaring that he wanted to play 40 games. But, unlike Kovacic, he's been vocal about wanting a future at Madrid. Reports indicate that Ceballos was at least partly responsible for ensuring that Arsenal had no option to buy him in his loan contract. When push comes to shove, the necessities of the club take precedence over any players in the mind of the manager. Hence, it feels like reckless planning to let Ceballos go before Madrid had secured a fresh central midfield option. Yes, Ceballos may have ultimately been unhappy to spend another year as a second option, but given his ultimate goal to succeed at Madrid, it would have been a hard but viable decision for Zidane to keep Ceballos given the club's needs. Instead, Real Madrid now only have 4 true central midfielders: Luka Modric, Toni Kroos, Casemiro, and Fede Valverde. Yes, the club does have James and Isco in the squad, 2 players who played in that position before, but we'll explain why they aren't viable options to rely on consistently in a second. If Madrid were to play a 3-man midfield for most of the upcoming season, they would have only one backup for all 3 positions in Valverde. Even if you were to assume that the young Uruguayan could make leaps above and beyond what is expected of him, including mastering the defensive midfield role, it's a bit naive to imagine that he can cover for so many people all by himself. Throw injuries into the equation, and there is a high risk that Kroos, the aging Modric, and the lack of a backup for Casemiro, that the midfield becomes exhausted come crunch time in April or May. The most simple solution to all this, barring any additional midfield signings, would be to move to a double pivot, creating 2 starters and 2 backups for those 2 positions. Both Kroos and Modric have proven time and time again that they are comfortable in those roles, and the double pivot arguably suits Casemiro's and Valverde's skill sets better than a midfield 3 does. Moving to 2 in central midfield also frees up the possibility of playing Hazard in the number 10 role, which would allow Vinicius Jr. to start in his favored left-wing position. This is not an ideal situation for Hazard, who has shown at Chelsea that he is best when deployed on the wing. But he would still likely make a major impact when playing from a central position. That would, however, more than likely lock out 2 seemingly forgotten men, Isco and James. Those 2 would die to play in the number 10 spot, something that has only fleetingly existed for them for much of their top-flight career. A double pivot would theoretically provide them with the chance to do so, but that's only if Hazard starts on the left or gets injured. And that poses obvious defensive issues. While it's possible to believe that Madrid could make up for Hazard's light defensive contributions with Vinicius out wide, it is harder to envision a stable defensive system with Hazard next to Isco and James. This is not because Isco and James are lazy, but because they are not particularly skilled defenders. If they were to consistently play in the chaos that is Zidane's defensive transition, they would be unable to instinctively plug holes in the way that Casemiro and Modric have done for so long. Pair that with Hazard's lack of deep defending and conservation of his energy to attack, and you no longer have the raw talent to rely on individual brilliance to shore up structural issues. Zidane is fully aware of this, which is why he has generally declined to play James and Isco as part of a midfield 3, and has also almost only entertained Isco as a number 10 when there were 3 midfielders behind him in a packed diamond. There were other instances when Isco played as a 10 in a 4-2-3-1, but it is worth noting that those occurred when Bale was on the left and Ronaldo played as a striker, rarely with a defensively weak Ronaldo on the left. That probably leaves the double pivot with Hazard as the number 10 as the best option as everything stands at the moment, but one can't help but feel that Madrid's potential is capped with such a lineup. The best solution would be for Zidane to improve tactically so that he can change his defensive emphasis from the individual to the collective. This would revive Isco and James as viable options, not just as number 10s alongside Hazard, but also as central midfielders in a 3-man midfield. That obviously provides Zidane with greater formational versatility and would likely allow him to get the best out of Hazard on the left. Of course, that may be wishful thinking, but it must be said that, regardless of the lineup Zidane chooses, he must have little choice but to build up his tactical new. Even with the conservative 3-5-2 formation with defensive personnel in preseason, Madrid still looked vulnerable immediately after losing the ball. As a result, the potential choice of locking Isco and James out of the team in favor of Hazard as the 10 may do more than just limit Madrid's ceiling. It may not even prove to be a significant defensive upgrade in the first place. Thus, Zidane's solution to his midfield conundrum may have as much to do with his tactics as it does his players. Thanks for watching this week's School of Real Madrid video. If you like our work, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell button so you get notified anytime we put out new content, and be sure to follow us on all our social media channels.